to episode 127 of the Various and Sundry podcast. I am your host, Matt Harmon, joined live from the Vault Studio on the beautiful campus of Grace College and Theological Seminary by my good friend, my colleague, my co-host, and the man who is on the cusp of making the long journey across campus for his new position here at Grace College, John Scott Sloat.
You know what I realize is I will no longer have a key to the studio here.
Oh, yeah.
I'll lose that. So you're going to have to be the keeper of the key.
Yeah.
Which 90% of the time you open up the studio.
I mean, pretty much we only use this studio together, so it's really not. And you can still access the master.
I could figure it out. Yeah, I could get
you have access. Yeah, you have your ways. You're connected. So, well, John, we're doing something a little unusual in that we're recording this episode on a Friday.
Yeah. What is today? Say the 3rd, June 3rd.
Yeah, and this won't launch till June 7th on that Tuesday. So, why are we doing that, John?
I'm in Arizona at a conference. So,
yeah. Now, see, most people try to schedule trips to Arizona. I don't know, when it's colder, rather than this is Phoenix.
Yeah, Tempe, which I think is just outside of Phoenix.
Okay, now is that cooler than Phoenix? Like
no, I don't. I don't think so.
So we're looking at like 105-degree days, 110-degree days.
So I'm in a hotel the whole time. So I don't know.
And what is the nature of this?
So it's for my current role, advanced pastoral degree program. So engaging with schools and advisors and deans that are all doing similar work to what I currently do.
Okay.
So it'll be getting a bunch of broad seminaries together to have conversations. So I'll hang out with some Lutherans. There'll be some Baptists there. I even think some Presbyterians show up.
I would think the people to hang out with in the social times would be the Lutherans and maybe some Presbyterians. The Baptists less so, I would think.
Yeah, the Baptists just honestly want to navel gaze and talk about themselves. You know, they just oh my gosh. The Baptists can be a little annoying. But
side note, we love our Baptist friends. And convictionally, we are essentially
absolutely
them.
We just don't want to hang out with them. But who do I end up hanging out with? Palm Beach Atlantic, which I don't know what denomination they are.
I'm not sure.
Normally I talk to the Baptist a little bit. Biola's there, so I'll talk to them a little bit.
Okay.
I'm buddies with the guy at IWU because we're, an hour apart.
Yeah.
Very different people, Yeah. I'm trying to think who else I hang out with. We're taking our deans going as well as a theology professor from Grace. So we'll probably see the Lutherans and the Presbyterians quite a bit.
And your lovely wife is going? Yes.
No,
she's not.
No.
Okay. Just okay.
Nope.
Gotcha.
She's working. So it's 3 days there, and they schedule stuff to like 9 o'clock at night, Arizona time.
Yeah.
That's like
midnight here.
That's like midnight here. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm trying
That's
to
like 3 hours past your bedtime.
I'm trying to push my bedtime back and leading up to this trip. But I also know my plane leaves at 7 a.m. Monday morning.
Fort Wayne or Indy?
Fort Wayne to Detroit and then to Phoenix.
Okay.
And I land in Phoenix. So I leave at 7 a.m. I have a 4-hour flight from Detroit to Phoenix. I land at 9 a.m.
Yeah. Full day ahead of you.
Time travel is so strange.
It is strange. If you'd like to reach out to the show and tell us strange things about your time travel, you can find us on Twitter at VNSPod. Email the show, variousandsundrypodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook and on YouTube, Various and Sundry Podcast. And we would always appreciate a 5-star rating and a review on whatever platform you access the show.
Mm-hmm.
So let's dive right into sports, John. We're a little hamstrung by recording 4 days in advance, but there has been one NBA Finals game.
Yeah.
And did you watch any of that?
I did not. I watched the Mets last night.
It's on ABC. You can actually see that without a cable subscription.
Really? I should have tuned in.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Boston won Game 1 against Golden State. despite Stephanie Curry going off.
Stephanie Curry?
Yeah.
Okay, that was intentional.
That was
All
very
right.
intentional. Yeah.
Okay.
I can admire him as a remarkable basketball player and not particularly care for him. So,
Okay.
the antics, I just not a fan. So I affectionately refer to him as Stephanie. He hit 6 threes in the first quarter, had 21 points.
Yes. On Twitter last night, I saw that the most popular prop bet on one of the overly advertised gambling sites, one of the most popular prop bets was that he would score less than 27 points in the game, and he had how many in the first?
21 in the first quarter.
21 in the first quarter and 34 in the game.
Yeah. It was weird though. He had 21 in the first quarter, didn't score in the second, and then the second half he, ended up going over that number. But interesting. I still don't know what to make of Boston winning Game 1 last night for the long-term series. So we'll see. By the time this episode drops, there'll be Game 2, which kind of is a must – not quite a must-win, but when you're the home team and you lose Game 1, it's hard to overcome losing the first 2 games on your home floor and then going on the road.
Yeah, Boston seems to just be getting hot at the right time of year.
Yes, they're a well-constructed team. They have good pieces. So, Jason Tatum is a legit superstar, I think. And Jaylen Brown is a good kind of Robin to Jason Tatum as the Batman. And they've just got good pieces around him with Al Horford.
Horford had 26 last night. Yeah.
And their shot blocker. Is it William?
Williams the third.
Yes. Tall, athletic. Good shot blocker inside, and just they have good pieces. So they're a well constructed team.
Although they won they won convincingly, right, by 12. But Jason Tatum only had 12 points.
Yeah. Others certainly picked up the slack. It was a weird game because Golden State was up by as many as like 15 in the third quarter, and then in the fourth quarter, I think Boston outscored Golden State by 24. That's not going to win you many games if you get outscored by 24. So, we'll see how that series develops. Baseball, Mets still trucking along?
Yeah, they played. So it's going to be a tough weekend. They're in L.A., so A, the Dodgers are very good.
Yeah.
B, the games don't start till 10 p.m.
Okay. It's unfortunate. Well, are the Mets going to be out on the West Coast while you're in Phoenix?
Yeah. So
there's one advantage there.
Yeah. I considered a drive from Phoenix after the conference from the hotel to San Diego where they'll be playing.
Okay.
I think that was like an 9 hour drive.
Yeah.
So I decided against it at the end of the day, but I thought about it.
Did you look into plane tickets? Like catch a quick hop to San Diego?
I did, but I think it was too late by the time I thought of that.
Okay.
But
here's where I wish the U.S. had a much more developed train system. I get the arguments against it in terms of economic models and that sort of stuff, but wouldn't it be great if you could just hop on a train?
Yeah.
Like we get you there in 4 hours?
Mm-hmm. You could work on the train.
Yeah.
You could do a lot on a train.
Yeah, that's one area that I wish we had more developed here in the U.S. Anyway, one other sports note you wanted to bring up?
Yeah, Ryan Fitzpatrick retired.
Yeah, no more Fitzmagic.
Guess how many years in the league do you think Ryan Fitzpatrick had?
15?
17 years.
That's crazy.
How many teams do you think he played for?
17?
No.
It felt like it. It felt like every year it was on a different team.
He was the starting quarterback for 9 different teams.
Okay. That's, crazy.
And what are you going to miss about Ryan Fitzpatrick?
The beard.
The beard? I think I'm going to miss him stealing his teammates' clothes and going to a press conference dressed as, I think it was Deshaun Jackson. Do you remember this in Tampa?
How could he? Deshaun Jackson's not a large man. I would think that.
No, but he put on that like suit-looking thing he had. I don't even know what to call it, but he did not have a shirt on. He had these big aviator sunglasses and a gold chain with. And Deshaun Jackson comes to the press conference without clothes on, or without a shirt on, and it's just like, dude, what are you doing? And
a Harvard-educated man, correct?
Yeah, went to Harvard. Yeah.
That's wild. So no more Fitzmagic. All right. Are we ready to talk some mere evangelism here?
Sure. So we read the introduction in the first 3 chapters. It was I read them last night.
Yeah.
An easy read, beneficial, really good, engaging, told good stories, weaved in Lewis stories and quotes really well. I appreciated it.
Yes. So the introduction it tells a little bit of Randy's own conversion story, which is fascinating. He's Jewish and grew up in a Jewish home, and so didn't become a Christian until he was in college.
Yeah,
and it was interesting that his experience resonated in some ways with Lewis's in terms of the just coming to Christ not as a kid, but intellectually coming around to the faith. What were some things that stood out to you? So after the introduction, we said the first 3 chapters we're discussing, right?
Yeah.
So chapter 1 is on the necessity of pre-evangelism.
I just appreciated how he talked about different aspects of Lewis's life and how he either did pre-evangelism or engaged in pre-evangelism, even talking about Lewis's wife, Joy, who had to have some of her own communist leanings deconstructed in order for her to come to Christ. I enjoy the framework that he has here that he put forward something that you and I have talked about before, the law of nature, right? That this thing that there are some universal truths for humans that are out there.
Yeah, and at some level accessible to all human beings. Even fallen human beings can recognize these realities. He has a helpful statement here on page 25. People's presuppositions, their underlying, often unspoken beliefs about themselves, God, and the world either set them up for belief in the gospel or for the rejection of it. Some assumptions pave the way for acceptance. Others need to be torn down. And at the bottom of that page, he has a pithy little quote, "We may need to blast before we can build." The idea of helping people to see the inadequacies of their own views so that they are then ready to abandon them and embrace what a biblical worldview is. So, I think this is something that becomes a theme throughout much of the book. In what I've read so far, I've got maybe the last 3 chapters to read. But the reality that we oftentimes maybe need to take a little bit more of a slower burn, a long-term approach to evangelism.
Oh, yeah.
And doing the pre-evangelism that, sometimes the Lord might give us an opportunity immediately to get right to the gospel. And other times it might take multiple efforts, multiple conversations to get there.
Oh, yeah. I appreciate the slow burn sort of method, I think. I'm trying to think of my own bringing, my own rearing in evangelism. I think when he describes aspects of evangelism in the first 3 chapters, like basically the simple gospel, get up to him quickly, get it to immediately, see objections as demonic obstacles to overcome, that feels a little bit more like my rearing. And so there's something about this that rings helpful and good to me. I'm curious, as you think about evangelism and your background with Cru, how does Randy Newman's method here strike you?
Well, I will just say again, I was on staff with Cru now over 20 years ago.
Sure. So maybe some things have changed.
Things have changed, I think, to some degree. But towards the end of my time on staff, I was moving more towards a little bit more of a gradual kind of approach like this. Not that just looking for opportunities, obviously, if the conversation naturally led itself to be able to fully present the gospel, great. But if not, to be able to just think, okay, how can I move this person a little bit closer to being in a spot where they're ready to hear the gospel or embrace the gospel?
Other than Randy Newman, what's the last book you've read on evangelism?
Boy, I'm not even sure. I think it was probably Mark Dever's book. I think what's it called? The Pastor in Personal Evangelism.
Okay.
But that was probably 7-8 years ago is my guess.
Yeah, I was thinking 6-7 years ago for me. I read Fool's Talk by Os Guinness about evangelism, and he would call it the recovering the Christian art or recovering the art of Christian persuasion, I think is what he would say.
Okay. Yeah, so chapter 1 on pre-evangelism was really helpful. Chapter 2, where he deals with what he calls, I want to get the term right, the appeal to clues. And this is where he talks about looking for clues in our human experience that provide entry points into discussing realities related to the gospel. He talks about how C.S. Lewis addresses the idea of pain as an entry point, the idea of longing, that those are clues to realities that transcend our everyday experience.
I appreciate him encouraging some pre-reflection on clues, like looking for evidences of God's fingerprints or God's intentionality in creation, in the world, and giving some forethought to that. So when you get to the moment of evangelism, it can be helpful to point to those clues. Yeah,
and that's something that comes out throughout the book is at points he will sort of stop and encourage you spend some time reflecting on entry points, on conversation starters, on things. So it's not just a do that. It's not just a here's what I think, but there are points where he stops and says, no, take the time to reflect on. And I think one of the biggest barriers to evangelism that people run into is that they're not ready. So that even when God provides opportunities where they're having a conversation with somebody that I know this is true of me, like I get caught off guard and you're like, oh my gosh, that was just a wide open door and I wasn't expecting it or ready for it, and therefore I might have missed it, or I kind of clumsily stumble through the door rather than be ready. And I think part of what emerges from this is the emergence of having thought through in advance so that when opportunities present themselves or when you are able to create opportunities that you're ready for them.
Yeah.
So I liked his emphasis on clues there in chapter 2, experiences. And at one point he makes there on page 41, this approach has an ironic advantage. Clues are not proofs. They don't pretend to completely settle the issue. They suggest more than they insist. They ask someone to consider something rather than surrender to it. In so doing, clues may actually accomplish more by attempting less. I think that's really true. That sometimes in evangelism we can think in terms of arguments, and there's an absolute place for that. And he does talk about that later in the book. But being able to use clues that make people think, and without resolving it for them, just sort of letting them sit in it for a little bit and reflect on it. Rather than feeling like, okay, here's your objection, here's my answer. Okay, next question. Like it takes it less from the argument stage into the conversation. Like, well, isn't it curious that this is the reality? What do you think of that? How do we put that together? Like, what do you make of this kind of thing? So I found that really helpful, the idea of clues.
Oh yeah. Enjoyed clues. Should we move on to chapter 3?
Yes.
Okay.
Honoring objections.
He kicks us off with talking about the great knock.
Yes. You want to explain for our readers who maybe aren't following along
Yeah. So as C.S. Lewis went through schooling, I believe his father thought he had some deficiencies, and so he sent him to London to this guy. Oh, what was his name? Kirkpatrick, to basically learn Latin and Greek. Mm-hmm. And they sat in his attic and read Latin and Greek, and read the Odyssey, read different Greek literature as well, Plato, Aristotle, and Lewis, in Surprised by Joy, calls him the Great Knock.
Yes,
which I always appreciate. And he was a person that I think was a little overbearing, maybe a lot overbearing, and demanded logic to everything that Lewis said in the midst of living with him.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a balance here in the sense of he addresses how sometimes objections are viewed as smoke screens, and makes the case for let's not just assume that they're smoke screens, which I agree with, and I don't think I'm saying anything that Randy would disagree with here, but sometimes they actually are. Mm-hmm. And so part of the challenge can be just sort of exploring to what extent an objection is an objection rather than a smokescreen. And I think some of that's just kind of hearing people out, just sort of help me understand why that's a barrier to you. What if that could be resolved? Would that make a difference in your willingness to embrace the gospel? And being ready for objections. There's sort of a broad range of objections, but where is it here? Let's see. Is it in this chapter? Maybe it's not. No, it must be in a different chapter. I read past this, so I don't want to spoiler alert there. But I like the way he handles this in terms of respecting it and yet addressing it graciously. Mm-hmm. So, are we good to move on?
I think so. I found all three of these chapters encouraging and challenging at the same time.
And part of what makes this book and even Randy's approach to evangelism, I think, is it's when you read it, you think, I think I could do that.
Yeah.
Like this doesn't seem like this overwhelmingly impossible task where you're like, oh my gosh, I could never do something like that. Like, well, I think with a little bit of effort and some thoughtfulness, I think I could kind of basically do that kind of thing. So next
what do we read next week? Yeah.
I think we should probably do let's see, that was 1 through 3.
Yeah, that was 1 through 3.
Let's do 4 through 7.
4 through 7?
Because then we'll do 8 through – because we're doing this in 3 chunks before we interview Randy. Yeah.
I believe so. Yep.
Okay, so we'll do 4 through 7.
Okay.
All right. Well, in light of our book discussion, we will have shorter main topics, and so that seemed like the perfect time to talk about our main topic today is Taylor Swift.
Of course it is. What else are we going to talk about?
I mean, it is summer, so why not talk about Taylor Swift? Why are we talking about Taylor Swift, John?
Well, she just gave a commencement address just not that long ago.
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, at New York University.
Yeah.
Received an honorary doctorate.
Yes, of fine arts.
Yeah, that I don't like honorary doctorates.
Oh, don't get me started. I like them even less than you do, I think. So.
Yeah, well, you actually have one, received an honorary doctorate, and she poked fun at herself for getting an honorary doctorate.
Yeah. She didn't take herself too seriously.
Yeah.
She's not going to be walking around calling herself Dr. Taylor Swift.
Dr. Swift. No, she is not. Maybe for like a week, but beyond that, probably not.
I'm just waiting for some album content out of that in the future, right?
Oh, she'll totally turn that. It'll be called Commencement or something like that. I don't know. But she gave She gave the commencement address. Have you listened to it or read through it?
Not the whole thing, no.
Okay. I listened to the whole thing this morning. It was 20, 25 minutes. And I think it was a little long because there was so much shearing and erupter of shears in between what she was saying. But she had this really interesting quote that I think grabbed our attention and gives us some clues toward the longing of the current age.
Yes.
So in the midst of this commencement address, she says, I'll read it right here, I know it can be really overwhelming to figure out who to be and when, who you are now and how you act in order to get to where you want to go. I have some good news to you. I have some good news. It's totally up to you.
Yeah.
I also have some terrifying news. It's totally up to you.
Yeah.
So I think that captures. I think that captures well both the desire of self-creation that we see from, certainly millennials. I would argue it first came out, and certainly in Gen Z as well as the angst, fear, anxiety, and general terror that comes with that also, right?
Yeah, for sure.
It kind of captures that. And so what are your thoughts? I've talked for a while now.
Well, I think there is that sense of both of those elements, right? There's the excitement, the seemingly endless possibilities that kind of approach seems to present. In one sense, this is the sort of fuller expression of what I like to jokingly refer to as the gospel according to Disney. So it goes way back, well before our current cultural moment of, look inside yourself. You can be anything you want to be.
Yeah.
Just look into your heart, trust your heart. No one else should be able to tell you who you are, what you think you like. It's all about you. And whatever you want to be, you can be. And don't let anyone else tell you otherwise. Taylor Swift is just she's a product of that.
Oh yeah.
And our culture is absolutely immersed in it. So it's not even like –
and she's made a ton of money off of this.
Oh, sure. But I want to be clear. We as Christians need to be careful. And Carl Trueman does a good job of addressing this in his book. Oh gosh, why am I blanking on the title?
Rise and Triumph?
Rise and Triumph of the Modern Self, yes. Where basically we as Christians need to be careful because this is the air we breathe in our culture. And so it's not just sort of out there, those other people. We're constantly influenced by these same currents in our culture of self-definition and autonomy and those kinds of things.
Sure. We may wrap it in a God's will sort of veneer.
Yeah, exactly.
But at its core, it's the same truth.
Right. And, when you get down to it, fundamentally it's the same reality as what we find in the garden. When you think about when the serpent tempts Eve, in essence, he starts with, did God really say? Which, and then by the time she actually takes the fruit, she is bought into the I can determine for myself what is right and wrong, and I can determine for myself, in essence, who I'm going to be and how I'm going to live, without the oppressive constraints that God has given me, because clearly He's holding out on us. And this is just the most recent form of that basic premise that's suffused our culture. And I think – but part of what I really appreciate, and one of the reasons why I think it's good for us to talk about this, is too often you hear the first part of what she says, this idea of, I have some good news. It's totally up to you. Wow, endless possibilities. I can be whatever I want to be. And then – and for some people, that is naturally attractive in a sinful way.
Mm-hmm.
But for other people, that's terrifying, overwhelming. How am I supposed to figure this out? What do I even begin?
Yeah.
What if I get it wrong? Like all that sort of angst that it produces. I also have some terrifying news. It's totally up to you. Like she's tapped into the great philosopher Taylor Swift, Dr. Taylor Swift.
Dr. Taylor Swift
has tapped into the both and there.
Mm-hmm.
Endless possibilities, overwhelming possibilities, paralyzing. And so how would you as we interact with college students, seminary students, and so what are some ways that you think we can help address students who find themselves in this sort of kind of cultural moment where they're bombarded with this message and they, regardless of whether they think, oh, this is great, I can define myself however I want, or I'm completely overwhelmed, I have no idea where to begin. How do we help students move away from that to a more biblical understanding of identity?
Yeah. I mean, in one sense, that's just a really, really big question and probably has different answers for the two different types of students that you described, right? So you have the one type of student that is very much like, oh my gosh, I'm excited about all the endless possibilities. I'm going to do everything. Mm-hmm. That's probably sitting down with that student and going like, okay, so what are your gifts, talents, those sorts of things, and how can you use those to serve others? And how do we and then how do we sharpen that into a vocation, and how do we take that and mold that?
Yeah.
The other student, it's it's just some real practical advice. Is turn off social media and pick a lane. A little bit. And then work on serving others. At their core, while they have separate. I think you deal with each of those students a little bit differently. Mm-hmm. At their core, they're both incredibly selfish ideologies.
Yeah.
The one is saying, oh my gosh, I get to do whatever I want. And the other one's going, oh my gosh, I have to determine what I do or who I am.
Right.
So, yeah, I think you deal with those students differently. But answers can be actually pretty similar.
Yeah. Yeah, I think an important starting point is reorienting them towards your identity is not something that you determine. Mm-hmm. Your identity is rooted in the fact that you are made in God's image, mm-hmm. and that comes with a certain set of realities that are not up for debate for you, are not up for you to change, to alter, to to try to reshape.
And those things that are determined for you are not meant to bind you, but ultimately to cause you to flourish and be more free.
Yeah. Yeah, I think and helping them to see that there's a value and a dignity that comes from being made in God's image, mm-hmm. that transcends you and anything you do or want to do or be. But I also think that when it comes to that whole area, I think a piece that is often missing, especially in our context, we tend to talk with ministry-minded students or people who are in those directions, and it's the community piece. It's the even as you're talking about, so what are your gifts? What are your interests? Like that's an important place to start. Mm-hmm. But what have others said about you?
Yeah.
What have people who know you well, parents, maybe a youth pastor, friends, like what would they say are areas of strength and gifting and how they can see or where they've already seen God use you in certain ways or things like that, so that it gets us out of our navel gazing to, there's some sort of objective outside of myself checkpoints where someone says, wow, I really see that you're a great listener. Like you're a good friend to people. And so you're mm-hmm. compassionate in those ways. Like, you might have a sense that that's the reality, but it's way more helpful to have someone else confirm that, because all of us have this gap between our reality and our self-perception.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know people whose gap is significant, where someone's like, I'm going to be this. Mm-hmm. And you're like, inside you're thinking, no.
Yeah, I remember.
No way.
I remember sitting down with a student years ago, and him telling me, as a freshman student, he's, I think, an engineering major, and goes, I'm going to become an architect, design churches, and then I'm going to preach in those churches, and thousands around the world are going to come to Christ. And I just kind of went, are you sure? And then, kind of got to push back on that. So what does local church involvement look like? Well, I don't go to church. Like, okay, what?
Yeah.
Who are your mentors? I don't have mentors. Sort of kind of, your parents behind this?
Yeah.
They believe in me. That sort of that vaguitude. But yeah. So yes.
Yeah. Did you just make up a word?
I did. Did you like it?
I was like, vaguitude. I'm not. Yeah, that's a new one on me.
Yeah, I'm still trying to determine a definition for it. But
I mean, maybe if you had an honorary doctorate, you could get it to stick.
I do. Well, I'll call NYU.
Yeah. Do you think they might be willing to grant you a doctorate
Probably not.
of fine arts?
No, I don't even think they'd grant me admission to a graduate school, to tell you the truth. So.
Okay. Yeah. So we've got a couple of resources to point people towards. We'll throw those in the show notes there. Carl Trueman's book, not the Rise and Triumph, which is like the 400-page challenging reading version. Now we've got the shorter, condensed, more accessible
200-page
version, Strange New World, How Thinkers and Activists Redefined Identity and Sparked the Sexual Revolution. And then a new book that just came out last month that I have not read, but
I haven't read it either, but I've seen
great things about it, and I know the scholar, Brian Rosner. He's an Australian biblical theologian, wrote a book with Crossway, How to Find Yourself, Why Looking Inward is Not the Answer. So that'd be something to consider picking up there as well.
Oh, yeah. All right, we ready to move on?
Yes, we are.
Okay, today in sports history, June 7th. 1966, MLB draft, the Mets pass on Reggie Jackson to select an Antelope Valley High School catcher Steve Chilcott.
Seems like a missed opportunity.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for him still waiting for that to come to fruition. 1978, 32nd NBA championship, the Bullets defeat the Supersonics in 7 games.
Yeah, neither of those franchises exist in those same forms. The Bullets are now the Wizards.
Yeah.
Still in Washington, though.
Mm-hmm.
The Seattle Supersonics are the Oklahoma City Thunder now. Yes.
1982, the New York Mets draft Dwight Gooden, Roger McDowell, and Randy Myers.
Now, see, that's a little bit better draft.
That's 4 years later they won the World Series.
Yeah.
1994, A's outfielder Ricky Henderson steals his 1100th career base.
Yeah. Is that record ever going to be matched?
No, the stolen base has been devalued incredibly. No.
Everyone just wants to hit home runs now.
That's shifting a little bit. So the ball's been deadened this year, so there's a lot more some guys are going, I'm not trying to hit home runs. I'm just trying to get base hits.
Yeah.
And so we're seeing averages climb over 300 again, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
Ricky Henderson always talked about himself in the third person.
Of course.
Ricky's going to steal second. Anyway.
Yeah, he was remarkably talented.
Yes.
So who do you like?
Well, I'm partial to the 82 draft personally, but probably the greatest achievement on there is probably Ricky Henderson.
That's fair. We're going to go with that?
Yeah, let's go Ricky.
Okay. Ricky would approve.
Yeah, Ricky indeed. And he would have said it just like that. Ricky approves.
Yeah. All right. One thing you liked?
Andrea and I have enjoyed Stranger Things Season 4.
Okay.
Are you a Stranger Things guy?
No.
Okay. I think are you a horror movie person
No.
at all?
No.
Even like some light horror?
Eh.
It has some 1980s nostalgia that would
I mean, that's the only thing that attracts me to Stranger Things that I've heard about, the whole 1980s nostalgia.
Yeah. The kids are biking down the street and you'll see – and it takes place in Indiana as well.
Okay.
You'll see Reagan Bush signs, Reagan Bush 84, stuff like that. So it's a lot of fun. There's the ridiculousness. I mean, the whole thing's ridiculous, right? The premise. But it amps up every season. And this season is like one of the characters is in a Russian prison. So there's a good Russian Cold War angle on it as well.
Yeah.
So it's been a lot of fun. Content warning out there, of course.
Okay. Yeah.
But yes,
Gotcha.
Stranger Things Season 4. They're doing it. So they released the first 7 episodes. Mm-hmm. All of them are like an hour 15 minutes.
I have heard some complaints about the length of these episodes.
I think it's wonderful.
Okay.
The final 2 episodes aren't coming out till July 1st.
Oh, wow.
And the final 2 episodes are like 90 minutes to 2 hours in length.
Wow.
So they're like movies.
Why not just break those up into separate episodes?
That's a good question. I don't know.
I mean, maybe just the narrative arc of the story they want to tell doesn't lend itself to piecemeal.
Yeah, and I think they're pushing it to July so that they can get another month's worth of subscribers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Totally.
Out of them. Anyway, that was mine. Stranger Things.
Okay. Well, I'm also going to go with 1980s nostalgia. Mm-hmm. Last night, so again, we're recording on a Friday. My wife and I, along with our younger son and a buddy of his, we watched Top Gun, the original.
Oh, nice.
In preparation for my wife and I going to see Top Gun Maverick. So by the time this comes out, I will have seen Top Gun Maverick. But I guess
you're assuming you're going to enjoy it.
I'm assuming I'm going. I've not seen anyone say a negative thing about this movie, and I don't think I told you this. Our friends, the Cornells.
Okay.
So he's a prof at Spring Arbor.
Yeah.
They went to see it last weekend when it came out, and they're like, they texted us and they're like, we have to go see this movie with you. So tonight, this is Friday.
They're driving down?
We're meeting halfway.
Oh, that's fun.
Going out to eat and then going to see the movie together.
Nice.
Because this was the original Top Gun was one of like the 4 movies that Rich and I owned in our apartment. No cable.
Yeah.
In college. And so basically had the movie memorized. Mm-hmm. And so even as we're watching it last night, I hadn't seen it in so long, but all the lines are still there in my head.
Oh, yeah.
And Kate leans over to me and she's like, every time I hear them say something on the screen, I just hear you and Rich saying those lines in my head. So,
had your son Jake seen it?
No,
he had not.
He had
not. My goodness!
And he and his friend, they liked it better than I thought they would.
It's a good movie.
It is. It is.
I don't think I've seen it since maybe It's over 10 years since I've seen Top Gun.
It's on Amazon Prime.
Is it really?
Yeah. So maybe that's a little date night for you and Andrea right
now. Yeah.
Get her to take a break from her intensive studying.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we have talked little NBA playoffs. We have talked Randy Newman's book, Mere Evangelism, and a reminder that we will be talking chapters 4 through 7 next episode. We've talked about Dr. Taylor Swift and the burden of determining one's identity. Mm-hmm. We've talked about Ricky Henderson. We've talked about 80s nostalgia.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
I think by definition we have covered our various and sundry topics. So all that's left to say is, until next time, the Lord bless y'all real good.
Later.